Any belief can seem harmless when it is treated as just my opinion, but this perspective ignores the reality that beliefs function as the operating system for human behavior. They're not static thoughts tucked away in a filing cabinet. They're the invisible architecture that influences what people fear, what they tolerate, who they trust, and who they justify excluding. When a belief is framed as a personal right, it often shields the holder from the responsibility of considering how that private conviction manifest as public action. From a philosophical standpoint, this raises the question of ethics of belief. Mathematician W.K. Clifford argued that believing anything upon insufficient evidence is not just a personal failing, but a moral one. He suggested that even if a false belief doesn't cause immediate disaster, it defiles the vessel of the mind, making it a ready prey for further deception. When we stop holding ourselves responsible for believing what is true, we lose the foundation for genuine community. True belonging cannot be predicated on shared delusions. It requires a shared reality. Religious belief rarely remains a private opinion because it's almost never just a belief about one isolated thing. It's usually a bundle of claims about reality, morality, human nature, authority, purpose, suffering, identity, and even destiny. When a person accepts that bundle, they're not simply holding a personal thought, they're carrying a framework that shapes how they interpret the world and everybody else in it. Religious belief is rarely isolated, it's totalizing. Most ordinary beliefs stay narrow. You can believe a certain food is overrated, that a team is better, or a movie is great, and that belief does not reorganize your entire view of human life. Religious belief, however, is different. It tends to reach into everything. It gives explanations for why people are here, what's wrong with them, who is good, who is dangerous, what authority means, what suffering means, what death means, and what people ultimately deserve. Because it tries to explain everything, it refuses to stay small. Religious belief automatically becomes belief about other people. The moment a belief system makes claims about what human beings are, it stops being private. If you believe people are sinful by nature, spiritually blind, corrupted, rebellious, chosen, unchosen, clean, unclean, saved, or damned, then your belief is no longer just about your inner life. It's already become a way of classifying others. Religious belief does not just tell a person how to see heaven, it tells them how to see neighbors, children's, outsiders, dissenters, and entire groups of people. Religious beliefs reshape morality around authority. They often move morality away from harm, well being, and evidence and ground it instead in divine command, sacred text, or spiritual authority. Ethical judgment is no longer driven mainly by what helps people flourish, it's driven by what is believed to be approved, forbidden, pure or impure, or righteous or sinful. That means people can be trained to defend harmful outcomes simply because they believe the source of the command is sacred. See, religious belief trains perception, not just conclusions. That's what makes it so powerful. Religious belief is not just a list of doctrines, it becomes a lens. It tells people what counts as proof, what counts as rebellion, what counts as temptation, what counts as virtue, and even what their own emotions mean. Fear becomes conviction, doubt becomes attack, obedience becomes faithfulness. When belief starts interpreting a person's own mind for them, it is no longer sitting in the realm of harmless opinion, it is actively shaping cognition. Religious beliefs create social consequences even before institutions get involved. Long before a church votes on a policy or a politician quotes scripture, religious belief is already affecting relationship. It can determine who people trust, who they fear, who they date, who they exclude, how they parent, how they treat queer people, how they define gender, how they respond to science, how they process trauma, and how they interpret disagreement. The social effect begins at the level of belief itself because beliefs generate behavior. Religious belief often carries an expansion instinct. A belief that presents itself as ultimate truth rarely stays content as a private preference. If someone believes they possess truth about ultimate reality, ultimate morality, and ultimate destiny, that belief naturally pressures them to teach it, impose it, defend it, protect it, or spread it. Even without formal power, religious beliefs tend to push outward into family, culture, community norms, education, politics, and law because a belief about ultimate truth rarely respects boundaries. Religious belief rarely stays personal because it's not a belief about one thing, it's a framework for understanding everything, which means it inevitably becomes a framework for judging everybody. If you believe humans are born broken, you will treat people through the lens of defect. If you believe authority is divinely assigned, you will treat hierarchy as moral. If you believe disbelief is rebellion, you will treat disagreement as corruption. If you believe eternal punishment is just, then you will normalize cruelty at the level of principle. So, when people call religious belief a private matter, what they often mean is that they don't want to be held accountable for its public consequences. Let's deal with the history. History is not merely a collection of dates and names, it's the physical manifestation of what people believe to be true at the time. When we look at the ruins of the past or the borders of the present, we're looking at the externalized map of internalized convictions. This is most evident in the era of manifest destiny and global colonialism, where the belief in divine right or cultural superiority was used to reshape the world map. These were not just personal opinions, they were functional justifications for the displacement of indigenous populations and the birth of new nations. These beliefs turned the abstract concept of progress into a mandate for conquest, proving that once a conviction is labeled as holy or inevitable, there are few limits to the actions it can justify. The power of ideology is a double edged sword that has shaped the very skyline of our civilization. On one hand, collective belief allows for the construction of wonders like the pyramids or even the Great Wall. These were projects that required thousands of people to share a single vision of the world. But on the other hand, that same capacity for shared conviction has fueled the devastation of ideological wars. In this context, we could argue that no weapon ever forged is as dangerous as a conviction. While a sword can kill an individual, a belief can mobilize an entire generation to see their neighbors as obstacles to a higher purpose. Even our biological survival is tethered to the accuracy of our beliefs, as seen in the evolution of medicine. For centuries, the medical world operated under the belief in the four humors and miasma, the idea that disease was caused by bad air or internal imbalances of fluid. These beliefs weren't just wrong, they were deadly because they prevented the discovery of actual pathogens. It was only when these beliefs shifted toward germ theory that we begin to save billions of lives. This transition highlights a sobering reality. Sincerity is not a substitute for truth. A person can be deeply, authentically sincere in their belief and still be fundamentally wrong in a way that costs lives. The transition from doctrine to bloodshed is perhaps most visible in the religious conflicts of Europe, such as the 30 Years' War. What began as a confessional struggle between Catholic and Protestant powers rapidly spiraled into a broader political catastrophe that redefined the continent. This period serves as a powerful case study in how abstract theological disagreements can end as state sanctioned violence and shifted borders. It demonstrates that beliefs rarely stay confined to the pulpit or the prayer closet. They eventually demand a seat at the table of power. And when they do, the cost is often measured in human lives. This pattern of social violence is further illustrated by the early modern witch hunts, where collective belief turned suspicion into systematic persecution. According to historical records, these hunts led to approximately 100,000 prosecutions and up to 60,000 executions, the vast majority of whom were women. This was not a failure of law, but a success of belief, a moment where fear, rumor, and moral certainty combined to create a lethal social environment. History is full of these moments where people don't kill because they had evidence, they killed because they had certainty. In the absence of doubt, belief becomes a license to destroy. On a psychological level, beliefs are not just thoughts you have, they're the filters through which you experience reality. These internal maps organize your deepest emotions: guilt, shame, fear, and even the way you monitor your own behavior. Research from organizations like the APA highlights how individuals often struggle to undo the psychological burdens of negative religious experiments. frequently resorting to acts of penance or self punishment to alleviate internal distress. Now, this suggests that certain belief frameworks don't just exist in the mind, they install a system of self surveillance that can leave lasting emotional scars long after a person has logically moved on. The danger of a belief system increases when it rewards closure over clarity. Research into actively open minded thinking shows that a willingness to consider contrary evidence is a primary defense against reasoning traps like superstition or conspiracy theories. When a belief system trains the brain toward rigidity by punishing questions, it creates a dangerous neurological loop. Over time, the brain becomes more efficient at confirmation bias, strengthening the neural pathways that protect existing views while allowing the prefrontal cortex, the center for rational, nuanced thought, to atrophy. The amygdala, your brain's fear center, can actually become hypersensitive, beginning to treat a simple piece of contradictory information as a literal physical threat to your survival. This internal friction is known as cognitive dissonance. When reality directly contradicts a core belief, the brain experiences genuine physical stress. If this moves from a temporary mental itch to a chronic state, it triggers the body's HPA axis, the same system that handles fight or flight responses to physical danger. Constantly performing mental gymnastics to protect an internal map from an encroaching external reality keeps the body in a state of allostatic load. This chronic elevation of cortisol and adrenaline leads to measurable cardiovascular strain, high blood pressure, and a suppressed immune system. Your body eventually sends you the bill for the comfort of being comfortably wrong in the form of burnout and physical illness. The physical power of belief is further demonstrated by the placebo and nocebo effects. These are not all in your head. They're biological responses where the expectation of healing can trigger actual physiological recovery, while the expectation of harm, the nocebo effect, can cause a person to experience genuine side effects from a harmless substance. This intersects with your locus of control, or whether you believe you're the driver of your life or a passenger. This fundamental belief dictates your levels of anxiety and depression. Believing you have no agency over your world can lead to profound psychological fragmentation and moral injury, especially when trying to maintain a double life to satisfy a rigid social or religious group. Ultimately, the physical stress of protecting a flawed internal map leads to sociological alienation. To avoid the pain of being wrong, people often retreat into echo chambers, shrinking their social circles to avoid anyone who might challenge their views. This leads to a loss of empathy and a decreased ability to function in a pluralistic society. The result is a state of profound loneliness, which health experts note carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. When we prioritize the comfort of our beliefs over the accuracy of our evidence, we don't just lose our grip on reality, we lose our connection to each other. Socially, beliefs function as the invisible threads that hold communities together, acting as a form of social technology that organizes belonging, authority, and exclusion. They're never just personal, they're the blueprints for how we build tribes, norms, and power structures. Now, this is most evident in how beliefs create in groups and out groups, defining who is considered a neighbor and who is labeled as dangerous or other. Now, while this provides a vital sense of belonging, it naturally creates a boundary that can quickly escalate from harmless local pride into systemic prejudice. When beliefs become group markers, as seen in data showing the tight alignment between religious and political identities, disagreement stops being an intellectual exercise and begins to feel like a personal betrayal of the tribe. This social glue also serves to normalize the surveillance of behavior and justify rigid hierarchies of obedience. When a community shares a totalizing belief system, dissent is often framed as immoral rather than merely a difference of opinion. This allows beliefs to become deeply embedded in the infrastructure of life, shaping schools, family systems, laws, and broader culture. Because these convictions dictate who gets moral credibility and who is silenced, even the most private belief rarely stays private. It inevitably manifests in the real world through the way people vote, the way they parent their children, who they choose to hire, and how they define the boundaries of their community. The power of collective belief is further illustrated by the social construct theory. Concepts we take for granted, such as money, laws, and national borders, only possess power because we collectively agree to believe in them. If we stop believing in the value of a currency tomorrow, the global economy would vanish. This demonstrates that belief is a functional tool for social coordination, but it can also lead to moral diffusion. The bystander effect, for example, is often fueled by the belief that someone else will handle it or it isn't my place. This internal narrative can paralyze social justice and community safety, proving that what we believe about our responsibility to others has immediate physical consequences for the vulnerable. Ultimately, while not every belief is equally harmful, every belief is consequential. Some convictions can certainly motivate extraordinary generosity, resilience, and community care. However, the true measure of a belief's value is not whether it feels comforting or provides a sense of certainty. The real question we must ask ourselves is whether our belief makes us more honest and more open to correction. Does it reduce the harm we cause to others? And does it improve how we treat real people in the real world? When we audit our beliefs through the lens of their real world impact, we move away from just having an opinion and toward a more ethical, evidence based way of belonging. The synthesis of these historical, psychological, and sociological impacts leads to a singular conclusion: the concept of epistemic responsibility. While we often treat our thoughts as a private sanctuary, the reality is that no belief is truly private because our internal maps inform our external actions, shaping how we vote, how we spend our money, and how we treat our neighbors. Holding a false, harmful belief is, in effect, a public act. When we grant ourselves a right to believe things without sufficient evidence, we aren't just exercising personal freedom, we're introducing a variable into the collective ecosystem. This responsibility is not about achieving perfection, but about maintaining the humility to be corrected by reality. As the saying often attributed to Mark Twain warns, the danger is not in what people don't know, but in what they know for certain that simply ain't so. Certainty is often the enemy of empathy and the primary driver of the physical stress and social wreckage we've surveyed. If our beliefs serve only to comfort us while justifying the exclusion or harm of others, they have failed the most basic ethical test. A belief is only as good as the well being it produces and the honesty it demands of the person holding it. The question isn't whether your beliefs comfort you. The question is what your beliefs do to your mind, your relationships, and the world you help build. If a belief can shape behavior, excuse harm, or resist correction, then no, it isn't harmless. If you found yourself exhausted by the mental gymnastics required to protect a rigid internal map, or if you felt the profound loneliness that comes from outgrowing a bundle of beliefs that no longer align with reality, you don't have to navigate that transition alone. The weight of deconstruction and the search for a shared reality can be heavy, but it also opens the door to a different kind of connection, one that isn't predicated on pretending to be certain. We invite you to join us at Bridge City. We are a community of people who are committed to doing life together after leaving the superstition of religion behind. At Bridge City, we believe in belonging that isn't predicated on belief. Whether you join us for our weekly Sunday sessions or connect with our global campus from anywhere in the world, you're going to find a space where clarity is rewarded over closure and curiosity is rewarded over certainty. You don't need a perfect map to belong here. You just need a commitment to being honest, reducing harm, and treating real people with real care. That's what it means to connect better, build better, and live better. Join our global community today, and let's be the difference the world needs together. As always, thank you for joining me today, and until next time, keep rising.